Does, Does Money Make You Happy? By James, Hunter, Nicole, Elisa, Antoine, Julianne, Amanda, Andrew, and Catherine. What is happiness? Happiness is generally stated as a state of well-being and contentment. In positive psychology, happiness is described as a sense of one's life as good, meaningful, and worthwhile due to experiences of joy, contentment, and positive well-being. Psychologists argue that happiness is reached by increasing pleasure and minimizing unpleasant emotions. As stated by the Greek philosopher Aristotle, to have these feelings at the right time, on the right ground, towards the right people, for the right motive, and in the right way is the mark of virtue. Therefore, meaning happiness should involve feelings and emotion that one deems to be appropriate given their needs. What does happiness mean to different countries? In some parts of the world, happiness is not necessarily a desirable state. While happiness exists in all countries, its meaning and the way it's experienced vary enormously. In Western societies, income and wealth are considered important factors when it comes to achieving happiness. In Eastern countries, happiness is closely related with factors other than income and material possessions such as personal relationships. It is interesting to note that happiness levels seem to decline as developing countries become wealthier. An example is in India, where people report being less happy as their income levels grew. In China, the idea of getting ready for one's funeral can be a happy event. This shows how much ideas of happiness can differ from country to country. Happiness to other countries. The United States and Japan have differences in how happiness is perceived. In the US, freedom and personal achievement are huge factors in the construction of happiness. In Japan, the concept of happiness is linked to good luck, moderation, and social harmony. This suggests that cultural values are important if we want to understand how people in different cultures find happiness. In the countries Switzerland, Iceland, and Australia, strong human connections and interpersonal relationships are the reason for their happiness. Poor people are happier in Eastern countries because happiness in their culture is associated with factors other than income and material possessions. Global studies confirm that happiness is built up of different blocks. Five most common building blocks, aside from income, are having social support, a healthy life expectancy, freedom, and being surrounded by an environment of trust and generosity. Defining happiness through language. The variation in how happiness is experienced across different cultures is also evident in language. Words like happiness and happy carry different connotations in Eastern and Western cultures and can't always be directly translated. An example is Mandarin has multiple words for happiness that aren't always a perfect equivalent to the English concept, since they can mean anything from a good mood to having meaning in life or having a good life. Mandarin happiness is also defined as having a good death. In Hong Kong Cantonese, the word for happiness is linked to low arousal state and its meaning is closer to calm and relaxation rather than celebration. In English, the word happy can refer to different things such as feeling of instant gratitude when someone surprises you with a gift or when you think of family and friends. Or it can refer to a deeper and less malleable state of satisfaction with your life. These three kinds of happiness can be translated as a different word. Unlike the English translation of happiness, refers not to a good mood but a good life, as well as life with meaning. By using these three words to ask different questions, researchers may be able to measure dimensions of happiness in Chinese that are often brushed over in English. Ranking countries in terms of happiness. Critics say the measure that most countries use to determine their well-being and happiness is through surveys such as Pew's Ladder of Life, the World Values Survey, and the United Nations World Happiness Report. The goal of these surveys is to figure out what ingredients makes a happy society. These surveys suggest that one of the most important components of happiness is wealth. Wealthier countries tend to have higher standards of living, better health care and education, cleaner environments, and more support for families than poorer ones. However, wealth is not only a factor for happiness. Happiness surveys capture things such as sustainable environment, social progress, personal growth, and self-acceptance. These surveys aren't always accurate, though. The biggest problem is how the concept of happiness varies in different cultures and languages. Here's an example of the UN's World Happiness Reports, which shows the happiest countries are marked in green are the most developed ones, and the ones in red and orange tend to be third world countries. The world's 15 happiest nations. This is based on GPD per capita, social protection, health, and life expectancy. This was conducted in 2018, and it shows Finland is number 1, and the US way below many countries, which you would expect them to be higher than. Culture and happiness. Happiness exists in all cultures, but what makes people happy in one country can be extremely different in another. The symbols of happiness in different cultures vary too, and the same goes for how happiness is expressed and perceived. Neither the concept of happiness nor the factors that contribute to it are absolute or universal. Can income levels buy happiness? According to a study conducted at Princeton by economist Angus Deaton and psychologist Daniel Kahneman, they found that happiness tends to increase along with income up to $75,000 a year. A study completed by Purdue showed that people making $95,000 and $200,000 have the same amount of happiness over time. The research from Purdue also found that it may be possible to make too much money as far as happiness is concerned. These are the two graphs related to the study conducted by Princeton and Purdue. Experimental data about money and happiness. The Gallup World Poll was given in more than 160 countries and over 140 languages. The main question used to measure happiness was, please imagine a ladder with steps numbered from 0 at the bottom to 10 at the top. The top ladder represents the best possible life for you, and the bottom of the ladder represents the worst possible life for you. On which step of the ladder would you say you personally feel you stand at this time? This graph shows the results in the form of the average income in each country versus the average self-reported life satisfaction in each country. The point represents different countries, while the arrows show the trend in each country. Arrows with high slopes indicate that richer people are happier than the poorer people, while arrows that point horizontally indicate the rich and poor are equally happy. As you can see, richer countries tend to be happier than the poorer countries, and richer people within the richer country tend to be happier than the poorer people in the same countries. In summary, higher income equals higher life satisfaction. However, is this always true? Another study explores the topic further. A long-running longitudinal study asked thousands of Americans how often within the past 30 days they experienced negative feelings such as nervousness, hopelessness, and restlessness. The results showed that people who have more money do have a reduction in negative feelings, but only to a certain point. This graph shows the reduction in negative emotions gained by each marginal dollar for families of different incomes. Money stops reducing negative emotions around an income of $200,000. Therefore, money and happiness have a stronger positive correlation around lower incomes and almost no correlation around higher incomes. In other words, it seems like money makes people happier only to a certain point. Marginal utility. The additional utility from spending one more dollar on that good or service. Diminishing marginal utility. The additional satisfaction a consumer gets from one more unit of a good or service declines as the amount of that good or service consumed rises. Example, a billionaire eating pizza. Even though pizza is delicious and satisfying, being able to afford many slices of pizza does not have as much value at once satisfied, because the enjoyment from eating a slice goes down after you are full or tired of eating pizza. Salary satisfaction. The effects of a person's salary and how happy they are because of it. The salary satisfaction changes from person to person, and males tend to have a higher satisfaction than females. There's only around 11% of the women in the world that say they are very satisfied with their pay, and there's less than 30% of women that are not satisfied with their salary at all. Using money for good. What will make you happy? What will not make you happy? Buying the new technology or good will create only temporary happiness. Spending money on others to receive prestige or social status as a giving philanthropist is labeled as impure altruism. What will make you happy? When a person has pure altruism, it can create long-term happiness. Example, giving to a cause a person is passionate about This creates a warm glow feeling that ultimately makes you happy. Why does giving make people happy? Flooding the body with oxytocin is one of the benefits of altruistic giving. It increases feeling of empathy and reduces stress. When giving, the body releases toxins that makes a person feel happy. This is why children always give their parents or other things that they have found. The brain levels of toxins are higher for those who are willingly give rather than those who are required to give. Food for thought. Money can buy a bed but not sleep. Money can buy a clock but not time. Money can buy a book but not knowledge. Money can buy a position but not respect. Money can buy medicine but not health. Money can buy you blood but not life. Utility and satisfaction vocabulary. Utility. The satisfaction gained from the consumption of goods and services. Consumption bundle. The set of goods and services an individual consumes. Utility function. The relation between an individual's consumption bundle and the total amount of utility it generates for that individual. People with different tastes will have different utility functions.